Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on demystifying the end of Jira Work Management. So happy that folks could be joining us this morning, and very excited to introduce our panel of speakers today. Just a quick disclaimer, Sebastian and Samuel are unfortunately unable to make it today, but I'll be stepping in as moderator. My name is Katie. I work in marketing at Cybert, and I'm super excited to be here. So I would like to open it up to each of you to give a quick overview. You can tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and maybe call out your favorite Atlassian product at the moment. Jimmy, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I'm Jimmy. I am an Atlassian community leader. I do a lot of stuff as it relates to certifications and talking about Jira. So I've been in the ecosystem for a little over 10 years. I work as an administrator at a customer. So yeah, I guess my favorite product always has been, always will be Bamboo. I'm never going to let that one die. So.
Never gonna give you up, right?
Never gonna let you down.
I was waiting for someone to pick that
up. Rodney, why don't you take the mic?
All right. Well, my name's Rodney Nissen. I am probably better known as the Jira Guy Online. I run the Jira Guy blog. I co-host Jira Life podcast. I am an Atlassian partner and consultant. I am an Atlassian creator, community leader. It's a shorter list of what I don't do in the community, I think, at this point. And I am so excited to be here, especially with everyone present.
Fantastic. Mark, you have the stage.
All right. Well, I don't hold a candle to these two gentlemen. I mean, they've done some amazing stuff in the ecosystem. Though I try myself to have an impact. My name is Mark Cruth. I'm a modern work coach at Atlassian. I've spent the last 5 years working with our customers as well as the public, helping them figure out how to apply things like our tools to not just like fix problems, but actually help them put solutions in place, actually figure out how they want to change their ways of working. So it's an awesome opportunity. I get to partner with people like Jimmy and Rodney, and I absolutely love it.
Fantastic.
Oh, and I didn't answer my product. I will always have I just realized I will always have a product near and dear to my heart, and it's actually Jira Line. That was how I came into Atlassian, and it is one that I think is one of the most intentionally built products out there. So I'll always have a close spot to that.
I mean, I didn't answer the question either, but I think it's literally in the name. So
you're like, I like Monday.
I really need to answer it.
Fantastic. Well, as you all know, today's topic is about the end of Jira Work Management. So at Team this year, it was introduced or announced that Jira Work Management would be merging with Jira Software to just create one product for simplicity's sake, Jira. And so starting in 2025, teams that are on Jira Work Management will be automatically migrated to this new version of Jira. And I know that there's been some questions, some uncertainty about this transition, and I hope that we can answer at least some of those questions today. So I'd like to go ahead and just dive right in and open it up to the panel. Feel free if you're feeling like you want to answer the question, go for it. And the first one is just sort of an overview, a little bit of a softball here. So why this shift, right? Why did Atlassian choose to merge Jira Work Management with Jira Software? Can someone give us a little bit of a story and background here?
So I can jump in because coming from Atlassian, I can give you kind of a little bit of our perspective, but also a little bit of my perspective on this too. Because at the end of the day, Jira Work Management was created to help kind of help address the project management collaboration needs on the non-tech side of the house. If you've used it, you've gone out there and you've seen the different views. This is the functionality that's designed to help kind of simplify project management for those non-tech users. But the thing is at the end of the day, work doesn't happen over here and over here. It actually happens across everywhere. And the thing is, behind the scenes, Jira was still running on the same engine. And so we're like, why are we trying to separate out these two groups of anything that's actually hindering our customers, because for them, they need to work across these silos. They need to collaborate. They need that work here to easily connect to the work here. And so for us, we looked at it as an opportunity to truly say, well, let's just get rid of IT and business and whatever that is. Let's just say this is how you get work done. This is the project management tool for how businesses work. And that whether you're in technology or whether you're in IT or whatever, this is going to kind of level the playing field. And I love it because it brings in functionality that Jira Work Management absolutely loves. Some of the stuff like their forms, how you build those things out. It gives you that functionality now to users in Jira who maybe at times that had some desires to have that. So I absolutely love that we're brought it together. And again, it's about saying, hey, this is how we solve the problem that everybody's having. We don't have to have separate products for that. I'd love to hear Jimmy and Rodney. I'd love to hear your perspectives, especially from the ecosystem, about why you think this is a good move.
Now, I remember Jira way back in the day. I'm sure Jimmy does as well. He's been at this, I think, a little bit longer than I have. But before Jira 7, it was only just Jira. If you need Agile boards, you added an add-on, Jira Agile. If you needed Service Desk, you added the add-on, Jira Service Desk. But it was still Jira at the end of the day. Jira 7 is when they made that split. They're like, okay, Jira Agile is going to be its own productized package called Jira Server. You can install that as a package. Jira Service is going to be its own productized package. You install as a package. And if you want to run the two of them together, you can, but it's kind of not recommended. There's going to be some complexities there. And since that split, the conversation I've always had to have when someone says, I want Jira is, okay, what flavor? Like, what do you mean? They have to go through the different features, what you need, what you not need, what are you trying to do, all this, have this like the whole 30-minute speech planned out that I could almost do from heart at this point. And when cloud came along and started growing in influence, it was the same story over there because it was based off Jira Server originally. I mean, it's its own thing now, but it's the same divisions there. And we're always having the same conversation. Okay, you want Jira, but what flavor of Jira? Do you need work management? Do you need software? Do you need... This wastes a lot of time to be having these conversations constantly. When at the end of the day, it's still Jira under the hood. So when this was announced at Team 24 this year, I was the first one on board saying, yes, this. Even with all the potentials that could come on with it, I'm like, this is going to save Jira admin so much time, just not having the same conversation every week.
Yeah, absolutely. Jimmy, anything more to share there?
Yeah, I mean, being at a customer, I can say that end users, they don't want a cookie cutter of how they're doing things. They want a buffet. They want to pick and choose things. So I have had marketing teams that want to run full Scrum, so they're using a software project. But then I also, some operations in dev teams who want the list view that comes with Jira Work Management. So it's one of those things where just being everything is its own thing now. Everything is in Jira, and you get to pick and choose the pieces that you want to use to make yourself as efficient as possible. Why wouldn't we want to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Atlassian talks a lot about efficiency, a lot about the team itself across different business units. So having one tool that speaks to everyone sounds like a step in the right direction. So I know you all touched on this just a little bit, right? But could you speak a little bit more to what how this will benefit teams, and what does this mean for folks that are currently on just Jira Work Management and have to go to a new sort of feel for Jira?
I mean, I'll take this one first. Sorry, just saw the presentation here. Caught me off guard for a second.
Adding a little flavor.
Exactly. We need that little picture of the guy who's like the meme, being like Jira Work Management and then Jira.
Next time.
But seriously, the walls between Jira Software and Jira Work Management were paper thin already. I mean, it was more in name only. If you had Jira Software, you already had all the features and separate projects for Jira Work Management. The real thing this is going to mean that if you're running a Jira software project and you want, say, that calendar or that form or the other fantastic features that were introduced with Jira Work Management, you can now bring them into your software project. If you're a Jira Work Management project and you need something more than the table that it comes with, you need a full agile board, you now have the ability to add that. So the walls were paper thin, but they were there. And what we're going to start seeing as some of these features are introduced is that wall breaking down even further so that you could have the right tools for your project that you need to get your job done.
Yeah, absolutely. Jimmy, any other thoughts there? Or didn't want
Yeah,
to cut
so
you.
obviously I don't work at Atlassian, so I don't know exactly what they're doing. But what I foresee happening is, if you look at Jira Service Management today, there are a whole bunch of templates that are being built out for the various types of functions that people are going to be using that type of a project for. And I can see that this is going to be the same type of thing for sort of your software and your business teams, where instead of it being you pick one of those two project types and then that's what you get, or I foresee them doing more templates on the Jira platform that will help you configure for the various types of roles that people are going to use those more standard projects for. A mix and match on the business side of things as well as the software development side of things to give you what various teams are generally using in a mix and match of both of those things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good segue, right? Because there's some really interesting new features, right, that are coming to this unified experience. And there are some in particular that I'd like to call out, and maybe if you all could give us a little bit more context and maybe excitement on how this could help teams stay on the same page. And one of those is goals.
Mm.
And I wanted to hear from your perspective, like how is this going to change our day to day?
So I'll kind of speak up on this one because I think this is really important for organizational alignment. And I think this is why it's so exciting to see this come out. Because one of the things that we saw with the introduction of products like Atlas back, a few years ago, that started coming out, it brought about this concept of goals. The issue we saw though is it was kind of a disembodied goal. Yes, you could connect it to some work, but it wasn't like a direct line access to like this work is supporting this goal. It was a little bit more abstract. And as we worked with our enterprise customers, I've worked with most every customer, one of their goals was to say, hey, how does my work contribute to the outcomes that I'm really searching for, those goals that I've set up, especially in a world where many of us, as you can see here with the on track 0.7, they're using things like objectives and key results. They're using that sort of mechanism to help understand whether or not they're making progress. And so for us, with introducing goals directly right in, you're no longer even going into a separate tool within the Atlassian suite. It is right there. And now you can actually nest down and understand the work that is contributing to this goal. Because now all of a sudden, when you look at a piece of work, you say, well, what is this contributing to? And you can then follow that up the chain. And you might find that, oh, it doesn't contribute to anything. And then we have to ask ourselves some questions. Is that okay? Or should it? And I think that's going to be a super powerful thing for our customers. And that's why I'm really excited to see us double down on this idea that, work is not what you're trying to do. It's the outcomes you're trying to accomplish. Let's give you a clear line of sight about that. So again, in a little bit of preview, we've been testing this out internally, of course. So I've got this as set up already internally in Atlassian, and it's just super slick in terms of how that connection happens. So I can't wait for it to hit everybody's instance and be able to actually take advantage of this.
I mean, I think Mark hit it on the head. When you're on the ground and you just got a list of tasks and stories in front of you, it's hard sometimes to see how that connects up to the grand vision that the CEO presented in the all hands meeting. And yeah, I'm adding a field here for some program, but how does that boil up into we need to leverage this particular capability? I see goals being that that filling in that gap, allowing people to go, oh, this is how my individual contribution contributes to the overall objective that we're trying to hit to meet our marketing goals, our strategic goals, whatever that may be. And that in itself, for motivation of I have to go do this every day, being able to see how that boils up is massively powerful. And that's why I'm excited to see this, because I'm excited for my people to be able to leverage this to go, okay, this is what I'm doing, but this is it how it boils up.
Yeah, I think your point of motivation is really strong. Like to be able to see, oh, if I'm working on this small piece of a project, it's really contributing to our overarching business goals and contributing to the team as a whole.
Yeah, I've also been involved in Atlas long before it was ever called Atlas. In fact, even when it was identified as a piece of fruit. And one of the biggest things that I always saw during the whole beta period, feedback wise, and it was feedback I had myself, was it's really hard to use two separate tools to actually show that transparency. I think bringing it into Jira makes a lot more sense now. And for what I have worked with a number of stakeholders internally, they're already trying to do this exact same thing, but only we were trying to do it with a advanced roadmaps hierarchy structure that was going beyond that. So I'm excited that we can stop trying to make things work with, the not 100% way it should be used, and use tools that are designed for that sort of purpose to get the better transparency and results that we're looking for.
Yeah. And speaking of more transparency and more results, another feature that I'm very excited about personally is Atlassian intelligence. And so what are y'all's thoughts on that? Like how is AI going to just absolutely transform our way of working?
Jimmy, Rodney, I want to hear
Mm,
what you guys think. I've got my own thoughts on this, but I want to hear what you guys think, especially looking at like Atlassian intelligence.
I mean, I've always seen it as a force multiplier for those who know how to use it effectively. If I use this tool and I learn how to use it effectively, I'm going to be able to accomplish 2x, 3x, however many, much more than I would be able to do on my own. Um, is it going to ever fully replace workers? I don't think so. You still have to have that human touch somewhere. And people could tell when it is purely AI generated. I have heard so many stories where someone looks at something and goes, oh, that's obviously AI, and it turns out they're right. I mean, it still very much fails the Turing test in that sense. But so you still need to have a human to touch somewhere in there. But I definitely see it allowing a individual to accomplish so much more than they would be able to do on their own. And that is an exciting prospect.
Yeah, I've talked about this a few times when I've been asked about AI. I think it's going to take out the menial, repetitive tasks that you need to do and make it easier to automate those so that you can focus on the important things that actually require your brain power to think about. And that's what I'm excited about seeing the advances that Atlassian Intelligence is going to bring to that table of, between the you know generating tickets intelligently, because we know that we're going to have certain types of tasks that need to be done. And, I know that's automation, but the generating those things is going to be faster because uh, Atlassian intelligence can help you and assist you in creating those things in the first place. Being able to find things, you can now use sort of a natural language smart search to locate things a little bit easier, as opposed to having to constantly contact me, the admin, and ask how to write the JQL to get what you're looking for. I think it's going to make it a lot easier for people to self-serve, which at the end of the day, I think that's what everyone wants, is to be able to find things, as quickly as possible without having to uh, have a deep knowledge on how to search the proper way.
I want to
And
piggyback
to
right there on that last point from you, Jimmy, because I think for me, I incredibly excited for what we have with Atlassian Intelligence. The functionality is super slick. It moves really smoothly in terms of how you use it. But the thing I'll always tell everybody, because I've seen it in many instances already, you're only going to get the best AI responses based off of one, the knowing how to ask those questions properly, but then two, the data behind the scenes. So for many organizations, if you haven't even brought about any sort of AI agents yet or anything to that point, or you're thinking about it, the first thing you have to do is not pick an AI agent. The first thing you have to do is think about your content strategy. It's got to be thinking about how you handle knowledge, because one of the things is that you're going to find is it's going to be garbage in, garbage out. And so for me, I'm a big advocate of saying AI is going to help us move faster if the data is right behind the scenes. If not, it's going to help us move faster in the wrong direction, which I guess maybe that progress is progress, maybe, right? But I don't really like that as an outcome. So that's one of the big things. And I think one of the things you're finding with the connection between Atlassian intelligence in Jira, as well as in our other products within Confluence and other spaces, you're starting to see the ability to now help you organize that. So I think that's going to be the superpower at the end of the day that things like Atlassian intelligence offers, is not just the AI capability, which is there, but it's going to help you think about how you organize that content in a way to optimize for that AI capability. And I think that's where you're going to see this flourish here in the next few years.
Yeah, I want to kind of also piggyback on something Jimmy said. There's a feature that was introduced in Team 23, and it was reiterated in Team 24 in Rovo. And I'm still very much waiting for this because I know we've all had this experience. We're starting at a new company, and they use some term that is very specific to that company, and you have no idea what they're talking
Mhm.
about, but you also don't want to ask what they're talking about because you don't want to appear to be like you don't know what you're doing there. And just the ability to have those key terms underlined, you're like, oh, what does blueberry from the Atlassian example mean? And you could look it up and go, oh, that's the secret project that we're working on. And get that context is going to be massive for getting people up to speed quickly.
100%. My favorite feature of that, Rodney, my favorite feature, because even for someone who's been in Atlassian for 5 years, there's new projects spinning up all the time, and I have no idea what's going on, but I use that all the time for that.
So coming back to this merger, right, of maybe teams that haven't had the full Jira experience, they were just using Jira Work Management. I'd love to hear from you on the best practices that business teams can use to collaborate more effectively on one platform together.
So, so I'm going to take that one first, only
Yeah.
because that's my bread and butter right there, is the practice side of the house, and that's what I spend all my time doing, is actually working with our customers to help them have that exact conversation. I think at the end of the day, bringing Jira and Jira Work Management together is a tool optimization. It's going to be something that is going to enable us to have maybe some cleaner language between, as we talk about things, have similar workflows. But it's not actually going to solve any problems. Let's just be super clear about that. If anything, it might make problems worse if we don't get intentional around how we want to use that. And so for me, I think what it does do is it brings both teams to the table, and it says, hey, this is going to be a thing that happens. On the business side, on the tech side, you guys now need to figure out how you want to work together in order to use this tool, optimally. And that's going to come down to thinking about things like, how do we want to handle the workflow for work? How does it move from one team to the other? How do we identify and acknowledge when we need each other's help? What sort of SLAs do we even establish for ourselves in terms of requests that we put on each other? And it's coming up with things as even as simple as working agreements to figure out, all right, this is how we're going to collaborate with each other. And I think within those working agreements, it's not just about like, oh, this is how we're gonna give feedback or things like that. It'll actually specify, this is how we use our tools. This is how we communicate using Jira. This is how we assign issues to each other. Coming up with those shared kind of practices is what's going to enable this to actually move teams faster and forward, that we weren't able to accomplish when it was kind of siloed off. And because at that time we treated it as two separate teams, that you have your ways of working, you have your ways of working. Today it's no, we want you to have very similar ways of working. We want you to have your autonomy, but you also need to have that alignment. And so for me, I think like bringing out even some of the plays from our team playbook will be critical as teams move forward to actually figure out how do they work better in a combined environment like this. Jimmy and Rodney, what do you guys think? What are you seeing, especially with the customers you work with, or even your own company?
So I see this problem a lot with people who are either onboarding on Jira, or maybe they just got a new add-on where they see all these new toys and they want to play with them
Ooh, shiny.
all right now. Ooh, yeah, perfect ooh shiny moment where they want to add all the things right now. And I think that's going to be dialed up to 11 when especially the work management people get the software tools, or the software people get the work management tools. That's going to be dialed up to 11. So
Mhm.
my biggest piece of advice is be very judicious about how you add things to your project. Understand, is there a need for this, or do I just want this because it's the new shiny thing?
Yep.
If it's just the new shiny thing and there's not really need for it, it's going to be additional clutter that's going to really take up space in both your mind and your workflow and all this that you don't really have the capacity for. So be very judicious. Only add these things you need to your project as you get these new features.
Start with, what are you trying to accomplish? I think that's the first question we always should ask. What are
Mhm.
you trying to accomplish? Because there might be, to your point, there might be something you already have in place to help support that.
Yeah, I think I had a PM that I worked with at a previous company who would always, every time someone came in with requests, he's like, "But what's the why?" And
I
that's
like
the
that.
question I try to remember every day to
Mhm.
ask is, okay, I know what you're trying to do, but why are you trying to do it?
Yeah,
What
that's
do
a
you
good
think, Jimmy? What about from? Oh,
question.
sorry, Katie. I was
No,
gonna.
no,
I
you're
know,
doing a
Jimmy.
good job.
You go day in and day out with this as one of our customers too. I mean,
Yeah,
how do you see this changing?
I think that's the thing. I don't see it changing because the
Mm,
tools are not what dictates our process. We have a
mhm,
process already defined, and the tools are there to augment and help assist in following the process. So
mhm.
the way in which our marketing team gets engaged in a release going out isn't going to change. It's going to follow the same path that it is. The way I see this is going to be new UI changes where people can view the data in a different way than they were previously able to if they want to.
Mhm.
And I think we're going to just sort of take the approach of, if you want to experiment, we always have a test project that's open to everyone to just go and play with things without affecting real data, and then you can understand how you might want to use that, as opposed to just putting it live and then trying to figure out while you're mucking around with real data on the what you actually want to use it for. Whereas if you try it out first and then you get an idea of how you think you're going to be able to use it for the actual work you want to do, it makes it a lot easier to sort of say, this is how we're going to apply it after we've had a chance to see how it works. So that's what I see happening with us personally.
Love it. Love it.
It sounds like there's kind of two approaches here, right? Like the teams that say, oh, we're going to adopt this new software. It's going to be our silver bullet. Everything's going to be great once we hop onto this. And then there's the process side of like, let's figure out the why. So when you work with teams that are maybe new to collaborating all together on Jira, what do you see are some of the most successful teams doing that help them get past that? Oh, it's just a fun new software and it's going to solve all our problems, but we're actually going to implement this process, right? So, what are some of the processes that are like, this is what winning teams are using to collaborate effectively?
I think, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to jump in here. I think the key to any successful tool implementation is to understand it's one part of a greater whole. Um, the example I like to give is like the fire triangle has, you need these three things for a fire to sustain itself. That is fuel, oxygen, and heat. If you take away any one of them, it collapses. Same way with these processes, you need the process, the people, and the tools. And if you take any one of those away, or any one of them is weak, the entire system is going to fall apart. So usually when I'm starting adoptions, I insist people think about, okay, what is your actual process? Why is your process? Going back to what's the why? Um, And I've had people I've asked this to, I'm like, okay, we're starting this tool implementation. What is your process? They're like, I don't know. I don't know what our process is. No one's actually written down. It's just kind of how we've always done things. We've never really put any thought into it. And that is a great way to get in trouble very quickly, because tools never going to solve that. People are never going to solve that. That is something you have to work on independently along with your tools and your people. And you need to have all three of them set up so they interact in the way you expect. So very much that is, when you're onboarding these things, when you're looking at it, focus on each of those areas individually and intentionally.
Mm-hmm. You said the key word there, intentionally. I think that's what it is you got to spend the time. I always go back to, this is my favorite Atlassian t-shirt here, because this is really what it's about here when we think about it. It is cut the tool shed. Why does teamwork have to be so hard? Because so often we put the tool in place of process. And so for me, actually for Atlassian, we spent some time researching this, and we came up with 4 things that every team should do to understand how they work. And then you layer in the tools, and it makes you work more efficiently. That's the goal. Tools bring efficiency, not necessarily effectiveness. For us, it's building out, an idea of like a team poster. It's coming up with like, what does it mean that what we do, why we do it? It's building that working agreement I talked about, being really clear and explicit about those things of how we work, the tools we use to work, how we use those tools. It's identifying roles and responsibilities within your team, but also across teams. And it's also identifying what we call as our network of teams, which is saying that, hey, work doesn't happen anymore in a silo. And we know this with business and IT teams. You have to work across teams. And so building those relationships is critical. And so we've done this internally as a mechanism to help us as we've scaled, as we've gotten bigger, where at the end of the day, we know the tools, they help us, but it didn't fix our teamwork. We needed to put those practices in place to help us move a little bit more effectively and then get the efficiency out of the tool.
So I've personally seen teams get stuck in the definition, I'm going to call it definition hell, where you're
Mm,
trying to come up with the perfect process out of the gate, and you sometimes need to just actually start doing things before you know how things are going to work properly. So for onboarding, my best recommendation to everyone is start simple, start small, and use the defaults. I know that there are going to be people who will say, "Oh no, you don't want to use the defaults. You want to make some configuration." Maybe you don't. I'd say do agile in your process definition. So you start with the defaults that are small and simple, and you look at what is working and what isn't working. What's not working? Well, let's modify those to make them work. I know most of them, we've got a number of sort of simple tasks for developers that relatively use the basic default workflow with 2 additional statuses, because those are things that they care about tracking. But we started with the defaults and found those, as opposed to building, 20 statuses right off the bat because we think we're going to need them. And then they end up just being over cumbersome, and people hate the process because you have to go through 20 clicks just to close a ticket. So my recommendation on getting started.
love that.
Keep it simple.
Yes.
Good life advice too.
I mean, the defaults, great way to just get started, get your hands dirty. Um, and nothing is set in stone. I want to reiterate that. And nothing is set in stone. There's nothing to say just because you start on the default, you're stuck there.
Mhm.
There's always changes you can make to the tools, to the process, to an extent, even to the people, to improve things as time goes on, to get closer and closer to that perfect situation.
Also, as an admin, please, please, please tell your admin when something's not working, because I can't fix anything that I don't know is wrong. And I'd hate for you to sit there and hate the tool because it's not doing the thing you want. But for all I know, everything's working exactly the way it should be because I don't know what's wrong. So, yes, I think all admins, I can speak for them and say, we want to help make things work the way you want them to. But at the same time, we need to know what's not working in order to fix it.
I mean, even if it's just a post-it note left on my desk while I'm at lunch, just get the information to me. You don't have to put your name to it. You don't have to let me know who you are. Just the information itself is key.
Great reminder there. I want to shift gears a little bit and go into the questions that we got from some of the attendees. So the first one here, we'll start with a more technical question. So someone asks, will Atlassian allow the copying of legacy JSW project settings when creating a new business project or Jira Work Management style project? Today, trying to copy settings from a JSW project overwrites the template selection of a Jira Work Management style project, so the configuration must be done manually. Sad face. Any thoughts here? I can also pop this into the chat if you need to look at it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with I'm not sure, but I always point my customers that I have on that one to your customer success here at Atlassian. If you have advisory services with us as well, they work with you for those sorts of migrations. The goal isn't that you copy it over and you're like, well, too bad, so sad. That's the last thing we want it to be when working with our customers. And so we work with, whether it be through our partners like Cyber or others, we partner with them to help them figure out how do you actually how would you do this the most effective way. Sometimes there are those issues where you can't do a super clean copy and paste, but if that's the case, we'll help work with you to help figure out what it is that you need to accomplish, so that way at the end of the day it's still a somewhat smooth process for your end users.
I mean, to kind of piggyback off that, as one of the Atlassian partners, that's what the service partners are here for, is to kind of help you. I have this situation, I don't know how to proceed. I don't have the expertise on staff, or I just not sure how to do this. Please help. That's what we're here for. Definitely reach out to us. The worst you're going to get is someone saying, okay, this is going to take a bit of thinking because this is an unusual situation.
Yeah. No, and I'll add on that too. I think that partners add sort of an additional layer of support. So obviously you can always reach out to Atlassian and, customer support there, and then partners can take it up a level and sort of advocate on your behalf as well. So
I'm going to answer this, and I'm not going to answer this at the same time. So
go for
I
it.
think that's what we've done too.
Where I sit as a community leader, I regularly get to be involved in some of the things that Atlassian's working on. Generally, I get thrown an NDA that I have to agree to, and one of those is in place here. So I have to sort of take Mark's lead on what can and cannot be said, because if he says it, it's fair game. So I will say
I wouldn't trust that. I'm just saying, Jimmy.
it's more if you have
Ignorance is
said
no
it,
excuse from my perspective.
That almost got me in trouble at Team 24 already, so take that with caution, Jimmy.
My statement is going to be this much. The other resource you always have available to you is the online community. And I know that Atlassian is figuring out what that migration when it comes to end of life is going to look like. And I know that they are going to have a lot of communication that's going to go out on the online community about bringing the work management projects into the new sort of the whole merger thing. So I would say if you're not in the online community.atlassian.com, go there. Keep an eye on the Jira collection, because I think they've already merged the two collections together. Watch for the articles that are coming out from Atlassian about it, because that's going to give you the when they're doing things and the what they're going to be doing. And it's usually a product manager that's posting those things. So you get a direct line to sort of talk to them about what they're thinking about doing. That I know from the online community, they're always willing to chat with people to understand the needs that fellow customers have on being able to work with the tools. So keep an eye on the online community for information
there, Jimmy, because we actually, even internally, it is encouraged for all of our teams to get on and support the community. So as you're going out, as people are going out, if you have a question, just like you said, ask it out there. And 9 times out of 10, if a community member doesn't answer it, they're going to say, hey, so-and-so who is an Atlassian product manager or principal, software developer, someone like that says, hey, could you answer this? And they jump on that. And so I think it's such a rich thing where it's not just people outside of Atlassian, like we are actively engaged there.
Yeah. definitely post in the community. Check if there's maybe a bit of previous post. Atlassian creators are often a good resource as well. If you're looking for, has this situation happened before? I've had a previous company joke. We just need to start asking if Rodney's published something on this before we ask any questions in Slack. But the Atlassian creators in general, Alex, my co-host on the Jira Live, has some 600 videos. There's not a lot of topics he hasn't touched on already. Definitely a great resource to check out.
Yeah, absolutely. I cannot reiterate it enough how much knowledge there is out there. And if we're not able to answer something here too, feel free to reach out to any one of us. I'm sure that we'd be happy to continue the conversation as well. So jumping forward, let's see. Another person wanted to know more about the integration and the transfer of data between different Jira products. Could you speak maybe a little bit more to how you can work with Jira and JSM, etc.?
Not one for the easy questions, are they? I'm gonna let my technical experts answer that one.
I know.
This has been an ask. The first time I got asked this particular scenario was in 2017, and it's still nothing better than the look, create them on both instances and link the issues together. Maybe have a Confluence page with all the various application links so that you could have visibility on both issues on the same page. And kind of what you got to do. You could do some more with dashboards as far as querying from other Jira instances, but it's still, this is a challenge. It just is. Jimmy, you've run across
I don't have
this?
much more to add. I think the best thing that I can add to that is Atlassian's clearly making efforts in the cloud to cloud migrations, which makes me think that they're now understanding that it's not just a single site. People are now expanding into using multiple sites. So I think as the usage of the product evolves, I think Atlassian also needs to look at the larger picture of how people are using it and make sure that the features are there for ease of use. I mean, the fact that they want transparency between things, it's going to come into play as the needs are there.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on there? All right, I'll keep chugging along. So you mentioned, Rodney, you mentioned dashboards, and that's actually something another attendee had a question on. Could you speak a little bit more to that and maybe dashboards inside of Jira?
That is a broad topic that I could probably fill another hour's worth of talking about. If you've never played with the dashboards, there are things I love about it, and there are things I loathe about it. The fact that we haven't really gotten a new gadget outside of the Atlassian marketplace in about as long as I've been a Jira admin is sometimes infuriating, because you think a bar graph would be something simple, and it's something not built into Jira as far as the dashboards go. So that's definitely an area where I would love myself to see Atlassian put more work into. But with what you do have available to you, it is still a very powerful tool. Just Jira superpower has always been you have all this data that where you've been working, and it gives you the ability to filter it, parse it, and display it in a clean way. And with some add-ons, especially, I cannot shout this out enough. Tempo, the Tempo reports is a massive add-on that lets you build even better dashboards and display the information a lot more varied ways. It's a great tool. It's something you definitely, as Jira admin, need to learn and play with. But this is something I give classes on to users regularly because users have the ability to do this is a massive win for everyone because it allows them to see what's going on their level.
I just wanted to shout out this comment as well. I think this was a great comment here. That they got multiple teams to leverage the same labels across projects and put them in a Confluence dashboard. One team is so excited that they decided to use Jira to track the work. How do you
There you
motivate?
go.
Yeah,
Nice.
right. You need to give us
Love
some
that.
Yeah.
tips.
I also want to note Chris Rogers here. I give clients rule of thumb. If you're tracking in a field, we can dashboard it in some way. I flip that around. I'm saying, if you're not going to have it on a dashboard somewhere, why are you tracking it in a field?
Chris, feel free to. Oh, 199%. 100%.
I love it. I love it.
Perfect.
Well,
Um,
and it's interesting, this whole aspect of dashboarding and stuff. I always think of the dashboards directly within like Jira or Confluence as being like level 1 dashboards. It's for the direct stuff, some basic things I want to be able to learn. But this is why from Atlassian, we've invested in things like building out our Atlassian analytics platform, why we bought companies like Chartio to actually create the dashboarding functionality. Because again, to your point, if I ask two people what kind of data they want to see, they're going to tell me wildly different things. And even if I can get them slightly in the same area, they might want to see it in slightly different perspectives. Goes back to like the bar charts, and I think that was one of the things that we decided to double down on was like let's give an actual charting tool out there. And so whether you're using Tempo, whether you're using something like Atlassian Analytics, I think those are the places that you ultimately want to go for those deep dashboards, those really good reports that you want to produce that has real-time data across systems. And I think that's ultimately at the end where you're going to go. Now, what I think you're going to see is we'll still have dashboards in Jira, but one of the things that's coming over from Jira Work Management, which I absolutely love, is the whole personal dashboard. And if you saw it, Team 24, there's even this Atlassian home concept, this new dashboard for yourself as an individual. And I think that's where we start seeing some of that customization, some of that tailored kind of dashboarding for ourselves, and then we look to using some of those other products to actually create some more of the meta level reports, the meta level dashboard. So I think there's a little bit of it's trying to right some wrongs, I think, in the past, where again we gave you dashboards but it really didn't do much for you. It gave you some, but it wasn't a lot. But finding out like, well, what's the right thing to give you for the scenario? And that's where I love the personal kind of data you get in one area, but then you have the ability to go super wide, super deep with other products out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think jumping off of that, some more maybe features that we're curious about inside of Jira. Brent is wondering if form creation may come back to Jira. And I'll follow up with, if not, maybe is there a suggestion for Brent on how he could accomplish that?
I mean, if we're talking about pro forma specifically, I mean, technically it has, but only to JSM. This is something I've to ask Atlassian, can we get pro forma functionality out of just JSM into the larger tool set, the larger platform, because it is so useful, and limiting it to just one subset of Jira seems like a disservice to everyone. I was mindful, the people behind Proforma were some of the earliest supporters of my blog. They were some of the first to be sharing them out to their audience, and I cannot thank them enough for that. And I was so excited when I heard they had been acquired by Atlassian, because I'm like, Proforma is a great tool. I'd love to see it all over Jira. And now it's just in JSM, and that's always been a little bit disappointing to me. So I'm hoping this. That being said, the form functionality, although not as rich as the Proforma, is there in Jira Work Management. And it's something that I do believe Atlassian plans to bring to the larger platform. I'm just hoping they build it out a little more.
Well, it's interesting too with the forms, and it goes back down to even the questions we had come up earlier, or the conversations we had around how much, it's like, do you start with the default, or do you go out and build all the bells and whistles into it? I've, even us internally, we as we've started to use Jira Work Management forms back in the day, and now as it's combining, what we found is that the simplicity of the forms for us has enabled us to have clear messaging around what we're trying to what we're asking for. We can't just say here's 15 different things, fill all these out. We really have to be intentional about it, and I think it's one of those forcing functions. If you really need to have deep forms, lots of things like that, we got a great product that does that for you, Jira Service Management. It's designed for that. But for 99% of the areas where a form is necessary, a simple form is quite powerful. And so I'm we'll continue to build things out. Like I've heard the rumblings of bringing in some more functionality from JSM into the form functionality that was Jira Work Management, now Jira. But I do advocate for that simplicity of the form. Like keep it simple.
Mhm. But to that point, dynamically driven forms is part of keeping it simple for the end user. Example we use in the Jira Life is we use JSM for our guest signups. And when someone says they're from the APAC region, only then do we pop something up saying, hey, we know you're from this area. Do you want to pre-record or are you want to stay up late for us?
I gotcha. Well, that could be some of the things. Those are some great use case. That's a great use case for, again, some additional functionality there.
Absolutely. And I'll just spotlight what Dan said as well. You can ask Atlassian to enable it for software projects. If you know the right URL, it's not normally available tab option. Any more thoughts here, or we'll just continue?
Well, let's get to more questions.
Sounds good. So someone's wondering, how will business teams feel with this merger? And will this open the door for more of Monday and Asana once again?
I don't think so. I actually think it's going to do a little bit of the opposite. And again, I'm coming from Atlassian, I might be biased, but I will say that I honestly do think it will do some of the opposite, because one of the biggest issues that you would see when I talk to our customers who have Monday and Asana for their business teams is they're like, it does exactly what we need, but it doesn't talk with the other teams. And again, it goes back to that aspect that marketing teams, HR teams, finance teams, they've all realized that, cool, we can do our work up to a point, and then everything is driven by some level of technology today, or there's a work that involves both parties. They have to go work, and so there is the copy and paste, there's the submitting of an issue into like a form or something like that for your tech teams, and now there's these two pieces of content that are identical, but they're no longer in sync with each other as they kind of move forward. You have to manually keep that in place. So I actually think that there was like this, even though back when they were two separate products for us, there was they were technically on the same system. You could link data easily together. There was still this perception of two separate things. And so I would I maybe have that assumption that I'm gonna have the same problem. I actually think by bringing it together, now we can say, no, you are in the same place, but you can customize your experience to meet your needs. It's no longer you as a non-tech person taking a technical tracking tool and trying to break it down so that it's not so crazy for you. It's actually allowing you to build up to the level and the functionality you need, whether it be highly technical or highly straightforward or more strategic in focus. And I think that's going to be a big thing that's going to allow us to really address the major gap that your Asanas and your Mondays and whoever out there have. And it's the fact that you're a separate tool and you don't talk well with where the work is happening for the rest of your organization. So I think that's going to help us out a ton.
I mean, I'm obviously biased myself. It is, again, literally in the name. But the biggest problem I've always seen with Asana, with Monday, with just about any other competitor out there is the lack of flexibility. Atlassian's superpower with their products has always been they're flexible enough to mold to your process and your team. Will it take some work to mold it? Yes, it will. I'm not saying it won't, but it is possible. And with the changes that go on from this merger from JWM, Jira Software, to just Jira, I think you see it becoming even more flexible where you could choose the tools that are right for you within your same project. I think that's going to allow another degree of flexibility that some of these people who are on these other competitors just can't have. It's use it their way or, well, just use it their way.
Yeah, no, I touched on that earlier, and I think Rodney hit it on the head. Right now, it's a matter of, well, we want to look at the data in this view, so we had to use a business project previously, but other people want to look at it, using a sprint or a Kanban board. Well, you have to use a software project. Well, now you don't have to do that. You can create a single Jira project, and you can have the various issue types for the teams that need to do work on a common project, and they can look at the data in whatever way they want. So I agree. I don't think you're going to see people turned away when it's allowing people to come together a lot more easily.
I want to add one final thought here and on this one, because Rodney and Jimmy, both you guys got me thinking about this, is that really what's going to be the friction point, the area that prevents either a movement or a move out, is that some of the historical things that have happened in the past with customers who use Monday or Asana or these, is that the IT teams that supported the Jira instance, they had their ways of working over here. And they're like, we don't want to mess with that. We're going to go stand it up ourselves. We're going to sign up for Asana. We're going to sign up for Monday. We're going to manage this ourselves. I think the really big call to action here, if we're going to be successful with maintaining and even growing the number of business teams on the Atlassian suite, is actually for those admin teams out there to evolve past, I am a IT system admin, and it becomes into, you are more of like a ways of working coach, architect, something like that. And you are looking not just at your tech teams, that you are looking at the business teams too. You're seeking to understand, how does marketing work? Because guess what? Marketing works very different than a tech team works. And if you assume that they work the same, you're not going to get them to use Jira. You're gonna find out they're standing up instances of Asana and Monday on their own. And I think that's going to be such a critical piece. So really, again, we're giving you the tools to be successful. I honestly think it's only going to be successful is if those folks who manage our Atlassian ecosystems evolve with that too. And we've been dealing with that for the last few years as we've been moving into this non-tech space. And so that's going to be my continuous call to action for our what would be Atlassian admins, is to find your next level of evolution here.
I think that's always been the case for Atlassian admins. Just to kind of build on that, you've always had to wear multiple hats. You're a work coach, you're a business analyst, you're a technical admin, you're a trainer, you're a teacher, you're a debugger, and some days you're even a programmer. That's just part of being an effective Jira admin, is you're always going to be wearing multiple hats.
So on that note, since we're coming to the end of our session here, are there any other last parting thoughts that you'd like to share with our attendees today? Any words
Rodney,
of
want to start us off?
I think I'll start us off. Change is always scary. It's just human nature, but change is also inevitable. This change, I was excited for the moment I heard it. I was one of the first people saying yes to this, even where it's like, how is this even going to work? It said it's scary. There are things that are changing, but I am genuinely excited for this because I think it will make Jira admins' lives easier at the end of the day.
Jimmy,
I don't
what
know
do you
what
think?
to add. I think Rodney hit it right on the head there. Yeah, change is scary. I think the sooner we accept that we understand what change is happening here, and that it's not going to take things away, but it's only going to give you more, it's going to be easier.
And I'll leave it with two kind of parting thoughts. The first one being on that change area. I always love this quote: change is hard in the beginning, messy in the middle, and glorious at the end. And so again, you just know that change is always going to suck. So it's just finding a way to push through the suck. That's what it is. And for me, I also think that it kind of goes back to, Rodney, to your point, as an Atlassian, even too, I was of the opinion of like, finally, we brought it together. Like, no longer are we trying to have separate the brain and have two sides to one thing. we're finally trying to solve the right problem, which is the same problem everyone has, which is how do we manage our work better? And everybody has that. So let's give a tool that helps that. So I'm super excited that we finally have made that choice. And it's going to be a glorious set of changes we have, right, gentlemen? Glorious changes.
Well, on that note, thank you so much. I really appreciate all of our speakers today. Thank you for spending your time with us. And thank you to everyone who joined in live. And also for those who might be watching this recording, we really appreciate you. And thank you so much for being here. So yeah, have a good rest of your day. And if you have further questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks everyone. Bye.